Welcome to our Earth Day webinar, EVs cheaper than you think. My name is Joe Wachunas. I'm lucky enough to work for both Electrify Now and Forth, and I'm joined here today with colleagues from both organizations. My colleague you see on the screen is Brian Stewart. We'll be hosting, moderating today, and then we'll have 4 other great panelists. We're so excited to have you with us here to talk about electric vehicles. So, just a real quick background, we are Electrify Now. We believe in electrification for buildings and transportation. We try to boil down our information into 4 easy steps. 1, clean up your electricity supply, buy clean energy. 2, electrify all the appliances you can in your home as soon as you can. 3, electrify your transportation. That's what we'll be talking about today. And then 4, electrify everyone. And I'll talk to you about that in just a second. Yeah, we want to talk a little bit about our Electrify coalition members. We organize a group of over 34 nonprofits who are all interested in electrification in all its shapes and forms. And so we want to thank our members and encourage anyone who wants to join this coalition to reach out to Brian or I, and we'd be happy to talk with you about joining. And then also a big thanks to everyone who donated. You probably saw in our Eventbrite page, we asked for donations for the Electrify Everyone program. We collect donations. We're all volunteer here at Electrify Now. We collect donations and we give them to this amazing program where we switch out old gas water heaters for new, clean heat pump water heaters that run on electricity for income qualified households. And Brian, how many water heaters have we replaced to date?
It's close to 30 now, yeah. And I just met with a woman who had hers put in a couple weeks ago, and it's fantastic to see how, grateful people are, and they really get it. It saves them money, but it also saves them, makes them feel good about the environment too, because they're doing their little piece to help reduce carbon. It's great.
Yeah, so thank you so much for donating when you're registering for this, and we'll also put a link to this amazing fund in the chat in just a second. We want to put a quick plug in for our upcoming webinars. We try to do at least 1 a month. In May, we're going to be talking with some electrification experts on May 19th. In June, we're going to be talking about all electric lawn care. Don't want to miss that one. And then we'll be getting into ductless heat pumps in July. So we'll, if you've registered for this event, you'll be on our mailing list. Please keep an eye out for these upcoming events in the next couple months. So today we're going to be talking about electric vehicles. And it's going to be a longer webinar than usual. Usually we're at 60 minutes. Today we're at 90 minutes because we've got 4 guests and we're going to do about 10-minute segments. So if you have to drop off at some point, it'll all be on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So we'll send that all to everyone. But we're going to be answering some really important questions. Are electric vehicles green? How green are they? Shouldn't I hold on to my car as long as possible? A sneak peek to that answer is no. What models are available? We're going to be going into some models and showing some live videos on those. How do I charge? You might have seen my colleague Stephen from Forth. He's going to be doing a live demonstration of charging, folks. We're going to be taking you live to an electric vehicle charging station. Then we're going to be talking about range and road trips with my other colleague Kelly, who just took her Tesla 7,000 miles across the country. We're going to be talking about cost with a used EV car dealer, Greg Platt, who will be coming on in about 40 minutes. And then we're going to be talking about how to find the right EV for you with Peter from EV Life. So a lot of exciting questions that we're going to be asking and answering in today's webinar. Now, why are we focused on electric vehicles on this Earth Day 2021? Well, the short answer is that transportation is our #1 source of carbon emissions. And we all know that we have to get our emissions down as quickly as possible. In the US, it's 29%. In our state of Oregon, it's closer to 40%. So we really need to lower our emissions quickly, and electric vehicles are the way to do that. Now, remember, this transportation includes things like air travel and everything, but the vast majority comes from the cars and trucks that we're driving every day. And that's a great piece of news because we can change these cars with clean electric vehicles and really lower those emissions right away. Now, the typical gas-burning car emits 6 tons of CO2 a year. That's 75 tons over its lifespan, which is a major problem. electric vehicles can be zero emission vehicles. Even if you're just using the regular electricity from the grid, you are still driving a much cleaner car, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if you buy clean electricity or you buy solar panels for your roof, you can bring your transportation emissions down to zero. So that's really exciting news. And there's so much else that's exciting about electric vehicles that we'll get in today. Chargers, look at the bottom right screen. Chargers are increasing. 10 years ago, there were 500 charging stations in the United States. Now we're up to 70,000, and the Biden administration wants it to be over 500,000 charging stations. Battery prices in the last 10 years have dropped from over $1,000 a kilowatt hour to just over $100 a kilowatt hour. So batteries are getting more efficient, and that means car prices are dropping. Ranges are increasing on electric vehicles. Model choices are increasing. We're going to see some of the many models that are out there today. There's so many exciting things happening in electric transportation. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that, look at us. In the United States, we are at 2% of new car sales are electric vehicles. Norway's leading the way with 75%. Europe is up there with a lot of countries over 25%. But we're at the bottom of the barrel with only 2%. So we Americans need to do our job and increase those numbers really quickly. And those are just new car sales that we saw. New car sales doesn't mean total vehicles on the road, right? In total vehicles on the road in the United States, it's under 1%. So we've got a ton of work to do to bring our emissions down from transportation really quickly. So I'll turn it over to you, Brian, for the next slide.
All right, thanks, Joe. So yeah, so that's why it's so important that we wanted to focus on this today and answer your questions. I know a lot of people have concerns, and hopefully we'll be able to address all of those today. So stay tuned. And like I said, if you can't be here for the whole time, this will be recorded so you can come back to it later. But let's start right in, and let's start with the first question about EVs. Are they really all that green? And a lot of people worry that we're just switching one fuel for another. You're instead of running on gas, you're running electricity. But isn't electricity dirty too? And what about all those batteries? So let's dive into that. Let's talk about the electricity first. I love this map. This is from the Union of Concerned Scientists, which helps us out a lot with our information. And they update this every year. This is still only from 2018 data. So it's probably even cleaner than this now, because the grid gets cleaner literally every day here in the United States. But if you check this out, what this means is that in the Northwest, where we live here, you would have to be driving a car that gets 102 miles per gallon for it to be equivalent to a typical EV. And if you're driving like a really efficient EV, like the Teslas or the Leafs, it's more like 130 or 140 miles per gallon. And so even in parts of the country where the grid is really embarrassingly dirty, sorry, all you people in Minnesota and Wisconsin in that area, or down here, West Virginia, even in those places where the grid is horribly dirty, you still have to have a car that gets more than 39 miles per gallon. And I mean, raise your hand if you're driving a car that gets that kind of mileage. Unless it's a Prius or something like that, you're probably not getting anywhere near that. So what this map tells you is just with the basic electricity that we get right out of the socket without worrying about any kind of renewables, you would be hard pressed to find a car that could get anywhere near the kind of basically energy for the buck and emissions for the mile. So that's great. And as Joe said earlier, you sign up for community solar here in the United States, in Oregon, for example, and these numbers go to infinity. Basically, you can't beat it. You can't match it with a car. So a gas car. So the other question is about batteries. And I think there's two pieces of this. The first is about what about manufacturing the batteries? And the truth is that even when you consider the extra manufacturing impact of batteries, a full-sized EV will still produce half the life cycle emissions of a gas car. That's on average, okay? Again, this is not using renewable energy or anything. This is just energy right out of the grid. Let's walk through that. So a typical car is a full-size car is gonna take about 9 tons of emissions in order to make it in the first place. But over its lifetime, it can emit as much as 94 tons this is kind of average for a full-size car. If you have a small car, it's going to be less than this. but we're using an average kind of full-size car. So 103 tons over its whole life. That's just a regular gasoline car. An EV, it's going to take more emissions to make it in the first place, more like 15 rather than 9, because you got these extra batteries. But the emissions from using it, based on that map we just saw earlier, is about 34 tons over its life on average. So 50 tons versus 103, even with the extra battery manufacturing. And again, if you use renewable energy for charging it, like, so easy to do because most people are going to just charge at home. And of course, you've signed up for community solar or one of those other ways. Now look at what your total emissions are, 15 tons versus 103. So it just blows gasoline away. And I think the other thing to remember is that even this manufacturing stuff, a lot of the companies that are building this are embracing renewable energy. So these numbers are going to go way down as they ramp up renewable energy for production. So that's the life cycle thing. The other question that people often have is about, well, what about recycling the batteries? And usually that's the way people think of it. Like, what about recycling them? I think the interesting thing that we've learned from diving into this is that recycling is kind of the last resort. What's interesting about EV batteries is that after their 8 to 10 years of their life on the road, they still have 2/3 of their capacity left. So there's no reason to throw them away or recycle them. There's plenty of other uses, and the ones that are emerging that are being experimented with a lot. And keep in mind, there aren't a lot of used EV batteries yet, but most of the EV batteries that are being used, a lot of them are from Priuses and things like that have been on the road for a long time. But as we get more of these used ones, this is going to ramp up. But the uses that are being explored right now are for utility scale energy storage, because that 2/3 capacity is still fantastic. It's still a lot of energy, and maybe even home energy storage. So you can see around the world, there's a lot of different kind of experimentation going on with use for end-of-life batteries from EVs. And there's also laws being passed to keep them from going to landfill. So I think you can feel pretty comfortable that your battery's not going to go to landfill. The worst case scenario is it's going to get recycled because there's some really good materials in there. But I think the most likely thing is it'll be repurposed for other uses. All right, so that's the kind of manufacturing side. I think, and they about whether EVs are really greener, and there's no doubt about it. There's just hands down the greenest form of transportation available, other than walking or riding your bike. All right, so what about this other question? Shouldn't I hang on to my current car as long as possible? A lot of people have this question because it's a good one, because for most things it's really smart to hang on to things as long as possible, because it took a lot of emissions to make that thing. But as we saw earlier, cars are different because they emit more energy, more emissions from using them than they did to make them. So here's 3 reasons why you should get rid of your gas burner as soon as you can. This is really a financial decision for you. It is not an environmental decision. There's no reason to hang on to your car, and we're going to explain this to you. The first is because, like we said, operation is the big thing. It's not making it. It's the operating it, the cause of the real problem. The second thing is, you're going to spend about $3,000 a year if you're a typical family with 2 cars on gasoline, just gasoline, and more than that on maintenance. So you could be spending that $3,000 to burn fossil fuels, which is basically paying for climate change. Sorry to guilt you out, but that's kind of the reality. Or you could use that money to fund the solution, which is EVs. So it's kind of your choice to make. I mean, it's your money, but over, let's say 10 years of, like 10 or 12 years, a car is in operation. That's a lot of money that you're spending basically just to pollute the planet. So I think the last thing is that, people like you, because I'm assuming anyone who's tuned in here is interested in EVs, and they're got a kind of environmental mindset, or maybe they're just car buffs, because there's lots of reasons to get excited about EVs just because they're cool. But if you got an environmental mindset, you're the exact type of people that we need to embrace this and start this adoption thing. Other people's will see what you do, and you'll be amazed how influential you are when somebody you know says, oh, wow, how you like your EV? And you go, oh my God, I love it. But here's a little graphic about why this is really important. So, you know, this over here, all the cars get made every year. They go into this fleet, basically, that's all the cars on the road, and at the end of life, they get repurposed or recycled. So let's say, and as you can see, we talked about before, there's very few of them right now. They're EVs, these white ones on the road. Let's say this is your car right here, and you've had it for a few years. You got a decision to make. You can either ride that thing all the way to the end of the pipe till it gets spit out over here, or you could sell it and let somebody else take it all the way through, because this thing's going to keep moving. You know, most cars trade hands at least twice over their lifetime. You could choose to sell it to somebody else, let them take it to the end of life, and purchase an EV. Just look what that one thing did. You cleaned up the fleet. That's one. Obviously, we need a lot of these, but just that one action, you've cleaned up the fleet, because now the fleet's got more cars on the road that are EVs. And if more people did that, we would get more of these EVs in the front of the pipe, which is what has to happen to eventually turn this pipe into all white little cars, which is what we want. All right, so I hope that makes sense. Do it as soon as you can. It's a financial decision, not a sustainability one. Don't hold on to your thing just because you think you're doing the right thing. That's not true with anything that burns fossil fuels, and especially cars. All right, let's talk about the fun stuff. Joe, lead us through here. What cars are out there that are available that we should be excited about?
By the way, I love that pipeline graphic, Brian.
Kind of hacked my way through that.
That was amazing. Yeah, great. So we're just going to go over a couple of the many models that there are. We're going to talk about the ones that are coming out. So we're not going to talk about as much about the ones that are already existing. So these are some ones coming out in 2021 we've got our eye on. The Rivian R1T, we're excited. This is the year of the pickup truck. 2021. It's coming out. The base price is $67,000. It's got 400 miles at the top range, 230 at the bottom range. And it starts at $67,000, by the way. Rivian, a little bit more expensive. And yeah, it's supposed to be.
I think the first ones that are coming out are more. My buddy Bob, if you're tuned in, Bob, love you. I can't wait to drive your car. He's ordered one of these things. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. So this will be coming at the end of this year, but if you order one today, you probably won't see a model till next year. And then Rivian's also got a really exciting SUV coming out with similar specs, a little bit more expensive, but again, 400 miles on that on the top range.
And those both come standard all-wheel drive too, which is not all of them do, but yeah.
Just amazing, right? GM is announced the Hummer will be out. They say by the end of the year. We're a little doubtful because we haven't seen a lot of specs, but it should be coming soon. Great to put this obnoxious, huge vehicle in electric and make it clean. You're starting at 80,000 and over 300 miles for that one.
I think they may have a lower price one that's going to come out later, but this first one's out will be in that range. Yeah.
A lot of times you see that the more expensive ones are the ones that hit the market first. Yeah. And then of course you may have seen the Tesla Cybertruck. It looks really space age, Blade Runner. This is interesting. It's the lowest cost version is going to be at $40,000, all the way up to $70,000. The highest range is 500 miles of battery, which is amazing. And it's going anywhere from the lowest range is 250, so from 250 to 500. Again, this will be at the end of the year, but they have a lot of pre-orders, so you're not looking to get one until next year. But we should start seeing these crazy cars on the road this year.
Can't wait, man! Those things are ridiculous.
This is an exciting car, the Hyundai Ioniq. It's 34,000. It's got a pretty decent range at 170 miles coming out this year. Beautiful looking car. So a little bit more, and we'll talk about rebates in a second. That's the sticker price, 34,000, but there's going to be a lot of rebates and credits.
Yeah. And by the way, these numbers we put on for prices, this is kind of like the starting point price. And obviously you can load all these cars up with extras, but we just wanted to keep it apples to apples. So they're all kind of the entry prices. Perfect.
And the Nissan Ariya, we're not exactly sure how you pronounce the name. That should be coming later this year as well. A really exciting, crossover SUV from Nissan, $40,000 before credits. The top range is 300 and the lower range is 230. It said, they said by the end of the year, but maybe we'll be seeing it in 2022.
Yeah, and then we got the Audi. I know I have a friend who's, whoa, what happened? We have a friend who's really interested in these. These are beautiful cars. Again, should be coming out later this year. It's built on the same chassis that the Volkswagen ID.4 is built on. And we're going to go into the little bit more detail on the ID.4 because I had a chance to test drive that the other day. So I got a little video for you. But the, yeah, the Audi is, you know, the range is 250, which was a little higher, but that's still a really good amount for most situation. That's going to be awesome. Beautiful car, and starting at about 45,000. They do make they're going to make an all-wheel drive version of it, which will cut the range a little bit. But that will be available also probably a little bit later. Then there's the Polestar. This is Polestar, you know, is basically they're aligned with Volvo. It's a beautiful car. There's a, you know, really ridiculously expensive, like $150 Polestar 1. I think the like more of a roadster, that there's a few of them out there now, but the Polestar 2 is the one that's really people are kind of excited about because it's more in that range of like the Model 3 or the Model Y. 233 mile range. It'll be coming out this year. And again, it's pretty awesome looking machine. Then there's the Model Y. Okay, so we're going to go into this one in a little bit more detail. This has been out for a little while, but I thought it would be good to go into a little bit more detail on this, partly because there's a lot of these being sold right now. These are really popular. I think this is turning into Tesla's most popular model. I just recently, we had a Model 3 for a couple of years, and we loved the Model 3, but it wasn't really the right car for us. If the Y had been available at the beginning, we would have gone this way to start. And so we traded our 3 in for a Y just about a month ago. And I understand there's a lot of that going on, by the way, because I think the Model 3 is, it's just, you know, more of a road car. The Model Y, even though it's funny because when I first saw it, I thought, wow, it doesn't look that different than the 3. But when you experience it, it really is quite a bit different. It's a little bit longer, a little bit wider, a lot more interior volume, and it rides more like an SUV. It really does. It has a stiffer suspension. It's a little bit higher off the ground. It only comes in all-wheel drive. They were originally thinking about doing it in 2-wheel drive, but they decided not to. So it's only all-wheel drive, but 50 grand for an all-wheel drive car, not bad. Particularly when you see, you know, the range that this has, the value of it is pretty amazing. We did this I have a little comparison of this, the ID.4 and the Ford Mach E. I've got little videos on each one, so just to give you a little bit better idea about what these things look like. So this is just kind of a walk around. You can see that I sort of think of it as like a Model 3 that's been sort of inflated a little bit. It's really similar lines, but it's higher. You sit up higher, which my wife and I really like for visibility. It's got this all glass roof, just like the 3. So excellent visibility. Yeah, and it's a little bit higher off the road. It's, you know, a lot of the features in terms of the way the car's doors open and stuff are exactly the same as the 3. One of the things I like about this is it's got in the trunk, it's got a really big trunk. It's like 68 cubic feet, I think. These flip down seats are kind of cool that, you know, you can, from the back, you can flip the seats down. It's got great storage in the, this back area. That's a lot bigger than on the 3, but it's the same sort of idea, but it's bigger. You know, some people, I think the door handles, let's talk about the frunk. So the frunk, much bigger frunk than the Model 3. So plenty of stuff. Like, I use it to store all my things like chains if you're driving in the winter, or extra charging stuff, whatever. And then, you know, it's got the same door handles. Some people don't like these, you know, they're super aerodynamic, but once you get used to them, they're fine. The interior is clean, just like the 3. The interior and all the controls are exactly like the Model 3. You know, shifter on the stick there. It's got great backup cameras that the 3 didn't have at the time that I have. So it's got these 2 on the side, so you get really good visibility backing up. And it's got some other nice features like this little storage here, that kind of felt covered area or leather covered area. There's a phone charging there, wireless phone charging there. My phone doesn't work there because it's not new enough. You got to get a new phone. And then there's all the other controls are on basically are on the touchscreen. And some people don't like that. I think once you've gotten used to it, Joe, you can comment on this. To me, it just feels normal now, but it was a little bit getting used to. What do you think, Joe? You have one of these.
Again, there's a little learning curve, but now it feels strange to go into a traditional car for me.
Yeah, when I get a regular car now with all those buttons, I'm like, wow, what are all these buttons? But here it's all there. You can see, you can set the limit on the range.
Oh, that's great. What's your range?
Charging.
That's a full charge.
Yep. And then,
drive to San Francisco, California.
This is one of the really nice features. You can just say where to go and it'll plan your route for you, tell you where to stop to charge. I'm not sure any of the other cars have this yet. I'm not positive. And then to charge, just plug it in. This is our charging setup at home. So that's the why. And it's kind of a little bit of a benchmark for other cars, which is why we wanted to spend some time on that, because if it isn't yet, it's going to be the most popular electric vehicle on the road in terms of sales. The Model 3 used to be, but this one is going to be the new one. So the other car that's just coming out that I'm super excited about is the VW ID.4, and VW is making a huge commitment to EVs. I mean, they're going all in, and they're basing all of their cars on the same platform. What's the name of it, Joe? Do you remember? They have a name for it, but Audi's using the same platform, so they're going to build multiple cars in the same chassis, and that's their concept for how to get the economies of scale and get the production costs lower, and it's smart. So the ID.4 starts at about 40,000 with their two-wheel version. They have a four-wheel drive version that's more like 45. That's coming out later. Range is about 250. They're available now, and they're beautiful cars. I had a chance to test drive one just about 2 weeks ago, and so you can see this is the vehicle that we were driving. It's got this crazy paint job. I don't think most people will get. I don't think that's available for most people, but it's pretty striking. It's a good-looking car. I had to say, when I just saw photos of it, I was like, but when I saw it in real life, I think it's a lot better looking car than I had expected.
Yeah, it looks awesome. How was the trunk space compared to your Model Y?
We'll show you here in a minute, but it's the total cargo space is a little bit it's a little bit smaller than the Y. It's a little bit shorter, and the cargo space is more like 64, I think, rather than 68, but similar in terms of cargo space. Yeah, so I think it's like the Model Y is a little bit like, wow, this is different. This is more like a car that's electric, and so here's the trunk space. It's very nice, split rear seats, and you can put down the back seats with those buttons there. The fancy interior is white like this. I don't think the most standard ones are going to be like that, but this is one thing I thought was really interesting. Listen to this.
You've got your cooler for the battery, you've got your windshield wiper fluid, your aux battery that powers all the tech separately from the battery that powers the car, and then all the air conditioning compression stuff too.
So this was really surprising to me because I was like, wow, no frunk. So it looks a little bit like a regular car up there, but that's a little mysterious to me. But it's not a deal breaker, I don't think, but it's just kind of weird because that's really useful space in a lot of EVs. But you can see the interior is really beautiful. It's clean. They have there's, as you can see from this picture here, and I'm sorry I don't have more about the way the interface works, but there's a lot more buttons here. It's a lot more like a conventional car. It's kind of like, they have this little screen up here that gives you speedometer. This over here for nav and most of the other functions. This shifting is here by twisting this knob. But the rest of it, is a lot like the regular a regular car, a lot of controls on the steering wheel, et cetera, et cetera.
We should move quick through the Mach E to, yeah.
Okay, so one last thing, you know, I drove this. It's it drives. It's not near as snappy as the is what I'm used to with the Model Y, but it's still really zippy compared to a gas car. So yeah, beautiful. All right, the Mach E. Well,
Looks like
it's not 749. That's my problem. It's hold on a second.
49,000.
49,000, not 749,000. Woo. 305 miles of range. This is a beautiful car. I have a friend, Lalit, who let me look at his and test drive it. And here's a little walk around. It's a stunning car. I mean, it has that kind of muscle car-y sort of feel that Mustang's famous for. But it is still, when you ride it, it still feels like an SUV. It has that more of an SUV type feel. But it's fast and it's beautiful. This is, you know, the early model that came out, which is a little fancier than most people probably get, but in terms of some of the interior detailing stuff, but it's beautiful car. It has, you know, I think that they really studied Tesla and took a lot of cues from them. It does have a frunk. My buddy doesn't like this divider thing. He says he's going to take it out, but the trunk is beautiful, and it's got this same kind of storage space, you know, underneath, just like the Teslas do. So it's a smaller car. Sorry?
Somebody's asking, what was the range on this one again? The Mach E?
250 to 300. So I think the top of the range is 300, and it's a little bit less if you get all-wheel drive. The interior of this car is amazing. I thought, you know, I think they really nailed it in terms of a lot of the advantages of the Tesla in terms of this big touchscreen with lots of stuff, but they also have a lot of really nice analog controls, like that adjustment for volume is beautiful. I thought they really did a great job with the shifter. There's not too many buttons in here, but there's also a lot of things that are familiar, like a shift knob. And, you know, my buddy was insistent on having a dashboard, you know, where you could see the speedometer without turning to the side, which is nice. So a little extra bit of information there. And then the detailing on this car on the inside is just spectacular. I was blown away. So this is I think this is going to be a really popular car. This car has some real sex appeal. And I think a lot of people who are just car fans are going to appreciate this.
Yeah. Well, I think you can tell Brian and I are car fans, and we could geek out on this all day. But
yeah, one last thing just before we move on, Joe, because I know we're running a little late here, but you know, these are three kind of similar cars, but you know, you can see the Tesla's the most expensive, but it's the only one that comes standard with all-wheel drive. It has the longest range. But this is interesting. If you check out the 0 to 60, the Tesla and the Mustang are similar. They're really fast cars. The ID.4 is just, it's not that. I think the ID.4 is really more like, it competes more with cars like Kona, for example. It's more affordable, but it doesn't have quite all the gadgets that the other cars do. But it's a beautiful car. I love it. All right, so moving on here, we're going to talk about charging.
Yeah, it's super exciting. We're already getting some questions in the chat on how do I charge. We're going to go to my colleague Steven, who we're doing this live charging demonstration. So hopefully, you know, it's live webinar here, folks. So cut us some slack if we have problems. Steven, if you're able to come on in. Steven is a program manager at Fourth. He manages the EV Ambassadors Program. He organizes ride and drives in Oregon, Washington, and California. And he used to work for the Multnomah County on urban forest management. He's coming to us live from Fourth. The nonprofit is in downtown Portland. He's coming from us live from the showcase. Steven, are you there?
I am. Thank you for the introduction, Joe. So bear with me a moment, everyone. Which side of the camera are you seeing? So I actually can't see the screen.
Oh yeah, we're seeing your face.
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So
well, hello everyone.
Can you pin this to Steven so that we can see him?
Yep. I'm gonna pin you, Steven.
Yeah, I think as soon as I'm talking, it will cut to me. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Allman. I'll be talking about the 3 different types of charging. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3 is how we kind of break it up in the industry. I saw in the chat that there was actually a question about essentially if you can charge using a 120-volt outlet, and the answer is yes. Joe may have addressed that earlier, so awesome.
Hey, real quick, Stephen,
so
hey, Brian, could you take off the slideshow and so we can see the face?
Oh, is that the, okay, yes.
There we go. Perfect.
Gotcha. Hey, everyone. Perfect. All right. And I can actually move the camera. Fantastic. Okay, so this is the plug type that you'll see for level 1 and level 2 charging. It's J177. There's a couple other numbers or letters after that, but essentially you just need to know what this looks like. So this plug works for both 240-volt outlets, so it's your regular dryer plug, or 120. This isn't an electric car charger. It's actually for an e-bike, but chargers will come like this with your car. Essentially, it looks exactly the same, but instead of having this little plug right here, you'll have one of these J177 plugs. So when you charge using level 1, you can expect to get about 3 to 5 miles per hour. So not very fast at all, but if you own a plug-in hybrid or don't drive very often, that can actually be a really good solution. For level 2 charging, you're likely going to see these chargers at people's homes who own a long-range EV, or you'll see them actually at a workplace. They're most common for workplace charging because essentially you're going to leave your car there for 8 hours, 5 hours, however long you're at work, and that'll get most of your range back. So these charge anywhere from 25 to 30 miles per hour. And as you can see, they're pretty easy to plug in. There's a couple different types here with the 4th showcase. This is Clipper Creek. It's really basic, probably the cheapest out there. Juice Box, which is a little nicer. It allows you to actually moderate it with your phone and figure out what charging level you're at. And here's a couple other stations that we've worked with as well. But let me give you a quick demonstration of what it looks like to plug in a level 2 charger. So a vehicle that I don't believe was mentioned was actually the Arcimoto. 4th has one of these on display here at our showcase. And you can see there's a little charging port there. But essentially, all you have to do with these is click it and just drop it right in. Actually, I've never plugged one of these in with the Arcimoto. Is it sideways? Yes, it is. Oh, interesting. So normally, you'd see a little light or something pop up for most EVs. It's also, what's interesting about the Arcimoto is it just has the plug for the J177. So typically you'd see 2 other plugs down here, and that would allow the vehicle to fast charge. So I'm going to actually take a pause here and pass it back to Brian and Joe and put you guys on the spot. If you guys could talk about kind of your home charging setup while I get out to the fast chargers on Electric app.
Awesome. That was great, Stephen. Thank you a ton. And, really, he's out there showing you the live demonstration. I can't thank you enough, Stephen, for that. Yeah. Brian, do you have any idea on cost? That was going to be my question. Do you remember what you paid for your home charging system?
Well, so we basically just use the chargers that came with the car. And so we have 2 cars that are electric. So we have a little Volkswagen that we park in the garage and we just plug it into the 120 circuit there. And, as Stephen said, you don't get very fast charge, but, if you typically drive like less than 30 miles in a day and your car is plugged in for 16 hours at 3 miles an hour, that's plenty. So for most people, just charging into a 120, if you can come home from work or whatever and plug in, you're going to be fine. In our case, since we had 2 cars, we had to put in a second electric circuit so that they wouldn't trip the fuses. And so since we're putting one in anyway, we put in a higher amperage. So it's closer to, it's more like a level 2 charger. So we get more like 15 miles per hour on our second one. But I'm still just using the same charger, the equipment that came with the car. I didn't buy a special charger. I just had to put in that second circuit.
I have a similar experience. Yeah, for 4 years, I just charged on a normal outlet. And that's what I say to people when they're getting an electric vehicle. When you're buying an electric vehicle, just try plugging it into a normal and see if that meets your needs. I mean, most of the time it does. It's just totally fine. You only have to charge every couple of weeks for a longer range car. You just, then charge it overnight. Just see what your habits are, get used to the car, and you can always upgrade to a faster charging, the 240 volts level 2. And your two options there, you can just have a laundry dryer outlet installed, somewhere accessible in your garage, and plug into that with a card. That's what Brian does, and plug your charging cable into that. Or you can get one of those charging stations that Steven showed you, and those installed. And I think those usually run anywhere from $300 to $600, and then you're looking at another $500 electrician bill. So around $1,000 to get one of those charging stations installed, if you want that faster 240 volt charge. So now what Steven's going to be walking out and showing you live will be what you want to do on your fast charging. So this is the, when you're on your trip, for example, I just drove across the country, and of course these, your 110 outlets and your 240 outlets are just not going to, be enough. And so this is, we wanted to show you live what a fast charging station looks like, because I think a lot of people haven't seen that. So let me see if I can pin Steven again here to show that live. Go ahead, Steven. We can see that great.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. So I'm at Electric Ave in downtown Portland. As you can see, there's a couple other electric vehicles charging here. There's a BMW i3 and a Honda Clarity. They have both fast chargers and level 2 charging stations here. Sorry, I have to raise my voice a little bit. There's a lot of street noise. But each fast charger is going to come with 2 different plug types. This is CHAdeMO, which is essentially the Japanese standard. And this is J1, or this is the CCS. So essentially, it is the J177 plug that I mentioned earlier, with this little add-on underneath it to make sure it can fast charge. All right. So a quick demonstration. So we have the 4th Nissan Leaf here. It is in need of a little bit of a wash, so please forgive me there. And we're going to plug in a fast charge.
So CCS, that's the Electrify America is CCS, isn't that right?
Yeah, and folks don't have to worry about it. Most cars, only Nissans really come with the other type, which Steven is showing you now. Most charging stations have both types, so you don't have to worry about it. And actually, one type is becoming obsolete, so it's just all go with one type. So you don't have to worry about different plugs. As Steven's showing you, there's 2 types of plugs. Go ahead, Steven.
So typically, you'd have an RFD card if you had some type of membership. But I'm using credit card just to show you how easy it is to scan with a credit card. So essentially you select whether you're using CCS or CHAdeMO. Want to hit CHAdeMO, and then you just hit start and it'd be good to go. I actually already charged this car all the way up, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's as easy as it is. You just plug it in and go for it. And that would probably take, roughly with this vehicle, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get the max range. All right, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, hey, Steven, real quick, somebody's asking, how long is the cord there at the fast charging station? Does it reach to the car?
Yeah, okay. So the cord is pretty long. Let's see here. You can only park front in, but the cord has quite a bit of slack, and even maybe too much, because people are just kind of throwing them around here. So I'm going to fix that real fast.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Steven. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey, just follow up on that. So about these different kinds, there's really the way the world's going, we're tracking towards 2 really important platforms for charging, right? There's the Tesla platform, which is proprietary at the moment, and the CCS platform, which Volkswagen, pretty much everybody else is using that. The only ones who aren't currently is the Leaf, isn't that correct?
Yeah, and even Leafs in the United States are moving to that. So basically in the United States, everyone's moving to the other one. There's the Tesla charger and then everyone else.
Yeah, and that's good. That's good. I mean, it's good to have fewer. And, it's also good because Tesla's so far ahead in terms of their fast charge network. It's good to have this other network catching up with CCS and Electrify America. They're planning to put in something like 20,000 fast charge stations this year. So it's going to really help the long distance charging capability.
Great. Well,
all right. Should we go back to speaking of long distance? Should we? Oh, someone asked how what Steven showed was different for Teslas. It's very similar. the superchargers there, you don't have multiple plugs. There's only one. You plug in. You don't have to put in your credit card or anything. It knows who you are. You just plug your car in and it charges you. I mean, and it charges your car and it charges your account for however much energy it is. It's really simple. But speaking of that, maybe Kelly can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So do we have the intro slide there? So we're going to get into our segment on road trips, and we thought there would be a perfect person to bring on here. My colleague Kelly Urich, who's a program manager at Fourth. She leads programs to boost electric vehicle adoption across and access to shared electric transportation. She manages large federal and state funded projects and diverse stakeholder groups, and she leads Fourth's workplace engagement program in Oregon. And several other cities. She's also just a fantastic person, and she will tell you about a pretty exciting road trip she just took in her EV. Go ahead, Kelly, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Joe and Brian, for inviting me here today. I'm excited to chat with you about a trip that my family took just last year. So this picture shown here, this is Becky. Becky is our Model 3 electric vehicle. We have the base level Model 3, so it gets a range of about 240 miles on a charge. So taking that across the country and back, it was quite the feat that we got ourselves into. And the impetus for this trip, of course, was that it was COVID, and most of our family lives on the East Coast in North Carolina, and we weren't going to be able to get on a plane and go visit them, so we decided to take our home offices on the road and travel via car to North Carolina and back from Portland, Oregon, where we live. And so over the course of about 17 travel days, the trip itself was longer, but 17 travel days, we visited 22 states, traveled over 7,000 miles, and it was all completed on electricity. So you can go to the next slide there, Brian. Thank you. So the picture that's coming into view here is sort of the easiest version of me being able to show a picture of our trip, and it's a little bit hard to make out. But if you squint a little bit hard, so my neighbor actually made us this pillow when we got back from our trip. She was just super enthused, and we actually kept a blog about it the whole time. And so a lot of our friends and family were sort of tracking us along the way. And it's linked there if you wanted to go check it out. It's still live. But anyway, my neighbor decided to make this pillow for us, which outlines our entire path, which we started in Portland, and then we took a northern route up through Montana and North Dakota, and then south, and then further east to North Carolina, where our family lives. And then on our way back, we went south. So we went as far as Texas and Oklahoma, and then up through, we actually hit the Four Corners there, but then ultimately through Utah, back through Idaho to Oregon. So it was about 17 days of driving, about 7,500 miles. And got just a few quick stats there for you. I won't read through all of them, but just kind of speaking generally about how it was, we're still working from home or from our vehicle or office on the road. So typically we would only drive about half a day, and then the other half we would spend working in our hotel. But then sometimes we would, have a really long day ahead of us, maybe closer to 7 or 8 hours of driving. And so we'd work from our charging stops. So we ended up stopping about every 2-ish hours, 2-3 hours, depending on the day and how fast we might have been driving or what the external, climate conditions were. We did drive through Montana and, northern Idaho and Wyoming and North Dakota. It was snowy. There was that first picture there was taken in, not Billings, Montana. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the city. But a supercharger in the middle of Montana. We were surrounded by snow. There was snow on the roads, but all was safe and well with us there. In general, you know, this sort of changed my entire outlook on what taking a road trip looks like. It was a lot of fun in a lot of ways, but it also was great because we just got to, you know, stretch our legs every 2 hours. Generally, I'm in a gas car, I'm accustomed to just driving straight through, and you know, maybe you stop once a day kind of thing for lunch. But with the electric car, you know, the title of this slide here, you got to reframe your thinking a little bit. And it really wasn't a huge adjustment. I think a lot of the adjustments we made to do this were actually for the better. We enjoyed ourselves a lot better. We didn't get so burnt out on being in the car because we were getting out every couple of hours. We did do a bunch of planning for the trip, and there are a lot of tools out there to help you plan should you want to go on a road trip, or even just, you know, the tools listed here are really great for any type of public charging seeking. Plug, Share, and ChargeWay are two great tools out there that I highly recommend. I trust that that's going to be covered in someone else's remarks today, so I won't go into the details there necessarily. But yeah, it definitely took a bit more planning up front. It took a little bit of flexibility to know that, you know, while we're planning for a certain number of hours of driving, sometimes the car was really cold, the weather was cold, and so it took a little bit longer for the charging to sort of kick into high gear. The superchargers are quick, but the car is still limited depending on some of the external factors at play, such as the weather. And then, let's see, what else was I going to say? Oh, one thing that I learned about the car really was that it is very smart. It's a Tesla Model 3, as I mentioned. But it was, you know, it did a really phenomenal job of sort of addressing the range in real time. So, you know, if we were doing a lot of uphill travel or a lot of cold weather travel, it was smart enough to know that, you know, you do need to take this extra stop that was maybe just an optional stop for you before, or vice versa. You know, maybe we outperformed what we had planned. That was definitely true, but the car, you know, it never led us astray. And so that was really helpful. So though we had our stops planned out ahead of time, the car also just sort of decided when it was time for us to stop. So that was really great. And then the last thing I'll share is one thing that's really great about electric cars is that they're very dog and pet friendly. The Tesla has what's called dog mode, that you can, you know, leave the car shut, the doors shut, and have the climate controlled to whatever temperature you prefer, which is really great. And you're not having to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Idle your vehicle to keep your pets warm or cool. And that's a picture of us. We were actually both on work calls while we were at a supercharger stop in North Dakota. This was just inside in Dickinson, North Dakota, which actually was one of the most hospitable. Good. I'm trying to say they were very. The hospitality was forthcoming.
You had it right. Hospitable is right.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, it's like ringing negative for me, but. We were greeted.
Kelly, when you question for you, so when you're stopping more frequently, like how long roughly were you stopping for each time?
Oh yeah, good question. So most stops were about 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah.
And what did you do during that time? So when someone was asking, you know, did you get a coffee? Did you work? What were your activity?
Yeah, we definitely didn't do as much as we thought we would do, because it was really just such a short amount of time. The car has some onboard games, and we've recently gotten into playing backgammon, and there's a backgammon game on the car console. And we expected to play so much backgammon on this trip. We didn't actually end up having that much time to do that. We would, you know, be updating our blog. In this case, since we were keeping the blog, we would try to update it at every stop. Because if we didn't, our families and friends would be very concerned about where we were. They were pretty diligent about checking our whereabouts. But in general, I would say, you know, outside of our trip, using the bathroom, grabbing a coffee, most of the charging stations are nearby, you know, a lot of amenities like restaurants and public restroom. Sometimes it's a little bit more challenging to find the public restroom, but grocery stores are a great option in that case.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely found that, like, by the time you go to the bathroom, get a coffee, you're pretty much ready to go again. So you don't have as much downtime as you think you might. Yeah.
And the other nice feature I'll say is, like, you know, a lot of the Tesla, and I think in other ones, the charging, it'll count down how much time you have left to charge. It'll be like 5 minutes left until you can proceed to your next destination. That's super helpful.
Well, that's so cool, Kelly. Thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Okay, well, should we move on to this next topic? Because this is another question that people have a lot. We've talked about range. We've talked about different models that are out there. A lot of people worry about EVs being expensive, and it's for good reason, probably because the sticker prices can look high initially. And also, I think, you know, the first cars that got our attention in this area were things like the Model S, which was, you know, you would have spent $120,000 to buy that car when it first came out, probably. But things have really changed, and I think we need to take the whole big picture, and then you see that they're really not as expensive as they look. And so let's dive into that a little bit. And I think one of the first places is with the rebates and things. Joe, do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, we've been getting a couple questions on the rebates. So there's a federal tax credit for electric vehicles up to $7,500 off of purchasing or leasing a new EV. Now, that's true for every type of electric car except for Teslas and GM, we like to say, because they sold a certain number of electric cars, and so they don't have any more tax credits that they can use. So Tesla and Chevy do not get that federal tax credit. But all other cars do. So, and then if you're living in the state of Oregon, there's a $2,500 rebate off of a new EV. Sometimes that's right on the hood. They'll take it off, and other times, like Brian and I had to, you know, file for that or send away our rebate, and then you get paid that $2,500. And then a really cool thing is that in Oregon we have a charge ahead rebate, $2,500 off a new or used EV for income qualifying individuals. And the income qualifications are pretty generous. And so that's also for used EVs. So you can, you know, sometimes find, we'll be talking to Greg Clyde in just a second. You can find a used EV for, you know, $6,000 to $8,000, and then you can get that charge ahead rebate. It just, you know, it makes it even more inexpensive. So yeah, check with your local utility, and we'll give you some tools in a second on how to do that with Peter. Yeah.
Cool. So that's the first thing is and we're going to walk through an example of this just in a minute, what it really looks like. But so the first thing is you get some money off the sticker price. And then the second thing is about using it. And I love this example because, you know, unfortunately the VW Golf, you know, they're not doing the electric version of this car anymore, but we have one of these. They're amazing. But I love this example because it's two cars, or they're exactly the same, a gas version and an electric version. But the EVs are just so much more energy efficient. It's the story with all electrification things. They're so much more energy efficient than their gas burning equivalents. But the VW Golf, pretty decent mileage, like for $10 worth of gas, you know, it's about 30 something miles per gallon. You're going to go 105 miles for $10 worth of gas on the gas version. The electric version, same car, $10 worth of electricity, you can go 3 times that distance. And this is why this totally gets the attention of the car makers, and also the trucking industry is really interested in this for this reason, as you can imagine, because, you know, fuel is their biggest expense. So they're just so much more energy efficient. So you have to take this into account when you're thinking about the total cost of an EV. And so here's another good example. We're just going to walk through it. This is another car, a great car, the Hyundai Kona. And this is another one where they make a gas version and an EV version. So you can see this big difference in terms of the initial sticker price cost, because the Kona, the gas car, it's a really, you know, like reasonably priced car. The EV, $15,000 more. But okay, first of all, you got to whack off those rebates that we were just talking about. That's $10,000. So now it's more like 22 to 27, still about $5,000 different. But let's talk about the 5-year operating costs. So you're going to spend almost $6,000 in fuel. This car still gets pretty decent mileage. I think it's about 36 something miles per gallon. So it's not bad, but even so, you're still going to spend almost $6,000 in fuel compared to $1,800 in electricity for the EV version. And then maintenance, there's basically no maintenance. You need windshield wipers, windshield wiper fluids. And of course you got to change the tires after 60,000 miles or something like that. But just like any car, but that's it. There's no servicing. There's no oil changes, nothing. So $800 versus $2,000. So now the 5-year cost of ownership for these two cars, exactly the same. And guess which one is way more fun to drive, faster to accelerate.
Doesn't pollute.
Everything.
Yeah.
It blows it away. It's like a car that's worth $10,000 more, but is really the same price. So that's why I think, you know, it's easy to get scared off by that sticker price, but you got to think about it with the whole enchilada.
Brian, have you done any maintenance to your car in 4 years, besides wipers and tires?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Zero.
Yeah.
0, 0, 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then one last thing, you know, the other thing is there's some really good deals out there. We haven't talked much about the Nissan Leaf. The Kona, by the way, is another great car. We didn't talk a lot about it because it's been out for a while, but it's an awesome car. Gets about 250 miles of range, I think. The Nissan Leaf, you know, this is a great second car is the way I like to think about it. Cause you know, if you're not going to go long distance in this car, I don't think very easily, but 150 miles of range, which is way more than anybody needs for 99% of the time they're driving. $99 a month to lease a brand new one. It's crazy. You are spending more than that on gasoline, I can guarantee you. So it's like getting a free car for gas money. It blows me away that they're able to offer this. And
real quick, Rick put in the chat that, you know, we haven't done any maintenance. Maybe we need to get our brakes checked. You know, we should highlight that brakes, you know, in an EV are wear down way less because you're using regenerative braking. This is where
you hardly brake
down and charges the battery. Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, it's true, because you don't want to brake because you want to just let the battery, the car reabsorb all that energy and slow it down for you, and it works really well. So yeah, so the Nissan Leaf, you know, this is a great car too. I have a lot of friends who love these things. Perfect as a second car. And maybe this is a great introduction to our next guest, Greg Platt. Thank you for joining us, because we want to talk about used EVs, because this is like a best kept secret, I think, in the EV universe. So we've got Greg Platt here, who's the owner of Platt Auto Group. It's the leading auto dealership in Oregon and even in the United States for used electric vehicles. That's all they do is EVs. Their whole team is really bought in on this, super knowledgeable. They've got great stock of cars. I think Greg's going to talk about that, and super knowledgeable about pretty much everything that has to do with used EVs. So Greg, take it away.
All right, thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Yeah, so just a quick intro. I'm Greg Platt. We've been car dealers for over 20 years, but about 7 to 8 years ago, we opened up this location where all we sell is electric cars. We were trying to sell pure electrics, not hybrids, not plug-ins, just literally all pure electrics. And so we've done that ever since. I guess I'll just kind of go through the bullet points here, but used EVs, well, used EVs usually come in as a second or third or fourth car for people right now, because typically the cars we're getting are lease returns. And so they tend to run about 3 years behind. Some are trade-in. So most of our cars are 3 to 5 years old. Some of them, you know, up to a year old. But most of the cars we have are kind of one generation back of what's currently available new. So, for example, Nissan Leafs were one of the most popular cars. I mean, when we first started in 2013, all we had were Nissan Leafs. You know, that's all that existed. Maybe some i-Leafs, but pretty much Nissan Leafs. Our goal is to have about 80 to 100 used EVs in stock. That's been challenging lately because there's a shortage of EVs used. People are holding on to them, and a lot of people are buying out the residuals on the leases because they're a pretty good deal right now. The key for EVs, especially used, are the first question we ask everyone is, what are you going to do with the car? So really, a used EV Take a Nissan Leaf, a 2015 Nissan Leaf, realistically a 60 or 70 mile car. That's not going to get you cross country. But really what it can do is do 95% of what you're going to use it for. And so somebody comes in, we talk to them, they need a commuter car, they drive 40 miles a day round trip to work, and typically that's what somebody does 95% of the time. And so these used EVs are a great fit for that. You really are just finding a car that fits the need. I always say it's kind of like an airplane. You have this flight plan, you're going from one spot to the other. You pretty much are going to do that exactly. You just need to find something that'll work to fit that. So that's the key. But the funny thing we always talk about is really what matters on a used EV is the color. Everyone always buys a used EV because of the color. So it's kind of funny. What to look for when buying a used EV? Well, the biggest thing always was batteries, right? In 2013, 14, 15, 16, when we were doing this, all anyone cared about was battery capacity. The concerns of battery loss. A lot of people thought that they're going to have to replace their battery every 3 or 4 years. But really what we've found, and we don't see that anymore. We rarely have people coming in asking about battery capacity. I think nowadays it's gotten to the point where EVs are more normalized and the fears of batteries have gone away. I really don't think, I always say batteries don't really wear out, they just degrade and they just become a new range car. So, somebody that bought the Nissan Leaf that would go 100 miles and they were trying to drive 70 miles and now that Nissan Leaf is too close with the degradation. Now it goes to the third owner and that third owner drives 40 miles a day, and they can use it for a long time. When the Nissan Leaf only goes 40 miles, it goes to the fourth owner. So, the lifespan of EVs are really, really good. Older Nissan Leafs had more degradation. The newer cars have very, very little degradation. We see, especially with Teslas and Bolts, incredibly low degradation. So that's less of a worry. We also, about 2 years ago, we were able to put together a special warranty package just for electric cars. We're actually able to warranty and guarantee batteries for unlimited time and up to a mileage point, and that includes battery capacity. So if somebody comes in and buys, let's say, a 2017 Nissan Leaf, that's usually going to be a 30 kilowatt car with 107 miles of original range. The factory warranty on the battery is 8 years and 100,000 miles. So say it's 3 years old, they have say 45 years left. We can actually include a warranty at a pretty reasonable price that will cover that owner for the life of their ownership, unlimited time, and up to 150,000 total miles on the car. And we can guarantee against any sort of battery defect or malfunction, and we can guarantee 70% capacity over that same time period. So that really eliminates a lot of fear on batteries. That was something we worked on for years to get in. So now we can offer that on pretty much everything except for Teslas. What cars are we seeing in the market? Well, here's a little list of what we usually sell. Nissan Leafs forever were our #1 seller, and then they got pushed out by the Bolt. The Bolt was really an incredible car for the money. All of a sudden, you're 200 plus miles. And for a time in the $15,000 to $20,000 price range. So they're really incredible. Fiat 500s, the little Fiat 500 electric, those are very popular with people around town. It's probably the least expensive, decent range car, just kind of small. So a lot of Teslas, the Model S's mainly, Eagles, and kind of an unknown car, the Kia Soul EV. A lot of people don't even know that car exists, but that's a great little car. Decent size, great range, and those are very, very, very popular. Going down the list here, typical thought process of buying a used car. You know what? Now it used to be just us educating people, and now it's kind of funny. We say about 60% of our customers are referrals from previous customers of ours. So really what's happening is someone gets a used EV, they start using it, their neighbor or friend sees what they're up to. Initially maybe had some thoughts that it wouldn't work for them, start talking to them, go on some rides with them, and quickly realize that electric cars are a lot different than they thought. Most people that come in, they used to think an electric car would be like a golf cart or something, like a little go-kart. That was the idea. But really electric cars are better in every way except for range. That's kind of the hang up. Yeah, reassuring people on batteries wearing out, it's really a non-issue anymore. We always say that the battery should last the life of the car. So the idea that you're going to have to switch out that battery at a cost of $11,000 or $12,000, maybe say on a Nissan Leaf, is really a non-issue. You're way better off just selling that car to the next owner. The cars retain their value incredibly well, and then take that money and upgrade to a new car. So batteries really, when we first started, we thought we would have a shop where we'd be doing battery exchanges and battery repair all the time. That just has never come true. So maybe in the future, but as of right now, the battery really should last the life of the car. The EV service center, yeah, this has been our big thing for the last year. We've been working on opening up an EV service center that specializes in electric cars. So it's down the road from us. It's about 6,000 square feet, and we will be able to do dealer level electric car repair. So anything from tires, brakes, up to cell exchanges on batteries, you name it, we can do it. So all sorts of different repair there. Another thing you guys mentioned, the $2,500 charge ahead rebate program. That's incredibly important, because you're talking about value, right? So we are getting now to the point where we can get, say, 2013 through 2015, what we call second generation Leafs. We've had them for sale from $5,000 to $7,000. That less $2,500. Now all of a sudden you're talking about a good used electric car for less than the price of an electric bike. So it really is incredible. I mean, it's unfathomable. I think a lot of people, when we tell them that, they just don't even think it's real. Like, they just can't comprehend the fact that, okay, I'm going to pay you back. You're going to receive a rebate for half of what you're paying for this car. Our goal has always been able to find, try to find a car we can sell for $2,500 and just list that it's free if you qualify for the rebate. And I bet that a lot of people would not believe us. We would tell you this car is literally free. Just get in it, sign the paperwork, drive away, and they wouldn't believe us. That'd be funny. It's getting close. Some of those first generations are getting pretty cheap. But yeah, so in general, that's what we do. We do EVs. I mean, if I could just, I guess if I wanted to give someone a quick update on the current status of the used EV market right now, is prices are increasing. All cars in general have really jumped up in price right now. There is a real spike in car values over the last month. And we're seeing that in EVs. There's some cars that are up 40% in value in the last 60 days. So there's a lot of reasons why we're seeing that, but there genuinely is a shortage of EVs right now on the used market. And that's kind of what we're running into. And that's why we have fairly low inventory.
Greg, if someone were to just go visit you today, what would they see in your lot? Just give us an idea.
Yeah, I mean, we probably right now have about 50 cars for sale, probably have 10 Model S Teslas, a big stack of Fiat 500Es. We love those. Bolts are very rare, and that's because of the recall on their battery situation, and lots of Nissan Leafs. We're into the 2018, 2019 Nissan Leaf world now. Not a lot of pluses. You can buy a new plus for less than a used one, but a lot of the 150-mile cars are pretty good value. And yeah, and we're starting to kind of get into some plug-in hybrids just because we can't get enough EVs to fill the demand. So doing a little bit of that.
Hey, Greg, real quick, before we let you go, somebody's asking about the how much value that used EVs retain when somebody goes to resell them.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment? I mean, you said that cars are higher, but people are worried about them losing value.
Yeah, they're okay. So two ways to think about it. I guess versus a gasoline vehicle, they retain their value much better, much less devaluation. And I really think that comes down to the fact that you're never going to have an old electric car that's leaking oil, won't pass a DEQ inspection, the transmission slipping, and it's a problem. So these older EVs, they may have a little less range due to degradation, but they're great cars. Like everyone was talking about, extremely low maintenance. So you don't need a lot to keep that EV going. But they are holding their value extremely well. EVs are basically valued on their range. So you've got your set of 60-mile cars, they're all roughly the same price. 100-ish, 107-mile cars, they're a price, 150, and then kind of the 200 plus range. And they all really group up together. Which is kind of interesting, but yeah, value is based on range capability usually.
Great.
That's great, Greg. That's so good. Any other questions for him, Joe, or should we move on?
I think we've got one last panelist. Thanks a ton, Greg. Really appreciate having you.
Greg, that was fantastic. Thank you. All right, so yeah, let's move to the next topic here, which is I'm really excited about this section because so you've heard right now about all these good reasons to buy and how what some of the tools are out there, but can still be daunting for people to figure out how to find the right EV for them because there's like how do you get the information? There's a lot of the stuff is new, charging, blah blah blah. So I'm really excited to be able to bring our next guest here, who's Peter Glenn with EV Life. He's the founder of EV Life, and they're a website and organization is basically devoted to helping it make it easier for people to buy EVs. He's built this whole new custom platform to make it easy for you to do this, and also is working on some really cool finance stuff that I think he's going to talk about too, to help reduce some of the cost. He's kind of a startup geek, I have to say. Sorry for using that word. I use it lovingly. He's been involved with a couple of startups, and I appreciate that about him. He's got a real entrepreneurial spirit, MBA background, smart guy, and really developed a great product here that he's going to walk us through. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, Peter. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And take it away. Show us what you got here. Bring us all home here.
Awesome, Brian. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Right now? Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone. And thanks for letting me close because I feel like what we're trying to do at EV Life actually brings together almost every piece of what everyone else has shared on this call. And for us at EV Life, we're an early stage startup that's on a mission to ask this question really every day when we go to work, which is, what if we could make buying an EV as easy and affordable as a gas car? And, Brian, I love your total cost of ownership slide in terms of how you look at affordability and kind of work through some of the challenges of like the upfront cost being higher. That's a challenge that we work through. I love all the questions and discussions around charging and range. There's so many unique aspects to the EV car buyer's journey. And at EV Life, we're trying to bring all those together in an end-to-end platform with everything you need to find and finance an electric car. So save time up front on all the questions that I continue to see in the chat about incentives, like what incentives are related to me in my area for my vehicle that I'm looking at, charging, how does that work for the vehicle, range, and then saves you money. We're developing an incentive-based financing product that'll allow you to take the, say, $7,000 to $10,000 in EV incentives, put them on the hood of your car, save up to $200 a month on financing, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And save the headaches when you drive off the lot and get some support with incentive filing and setting up home charging when you get home on a vehicle that's fit for your life in your zip code with your specific needs in mind. And that's really what we're going for here, is personalizing the EV experience through a web platform. So, but in terms of what I want to share with you today, I am going to dig into the platform a bit, but the purpose of this presentation to you is really to help understand some of the key steps along the journey, and how you can take that journey potentially with EV Life, or however you want to take it. But we have thousands of users coming to our website every month, asking questions before and after they buy an electric vehicle. And we've boiled, I think, the most essential steps down to 7 simple steps. And so I'm going to actually dive in to EV Life and kind of model those steps and walk you through all 7 along the way and give you some tips to save time and hopefully some money as well. So I went to evlife.co and I'm going to click Browse Cars. And I'm just going to go ahead and filter just for all electric. There are some great plug-in hybrids out there as well if you feel like you still have a little range anxiety and you're not quite ready to leap fully into battery electric vehicles. And then from a body type perspective, there's so many great crossovers and SUVs out there. So I'm going to filter just for those. And I personally am a huge fan of the Hyundai Kona as well. And so I'm gonna demo with the Hyundai Kona today, and just kind of get into this. So once you've narrowed your car search, you can look at a few different vehicles, based on some different filters. Then it's really important that you understand like how the range of the vehicle fits within your life. So as Brian mentioned earlier, the Hyundai Kona has over 250 miles of electric range. The price comes in under $40,000, which is very economical. And I can see, I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but in San Francisco and in Portland as well, I qualify for $10,000, $11,000 in incentives. So we'll get to that in a second. But just to dive into range, we have a couple tools that allow you to kind of simulate what it would be like to go on a road trip, let's say in this car. So if I want to drive up to Portland, which is where I was born and raised, I'm going to hit submit. And I can see in this vehicle, with these types of charging options, I can get DC fast charge at all these different points along my route. It'll take me about an hour max to charge. I need to stop for at least 3 times along the way. And I'm going to spend about $46 on fuel. Now, of course, how the actual trip performs is you really need to use an app like PlugShare or something else to really, guide that journey. But before you buy the car, getting a sense of what that's going to look like. The same for a weekly commute. So if I wanted to commute from, say, San Francisco to Mountain View, which is a commute I used to make, you can kind of see like, how much charging would I actually need? Do I actually need to charge up at home? Do I need a fast charger? I think in my case, probably not. This would only require 1 overnight charge to do about 381 miles back and forth between San Francisco and Mountain View. And so just giving people a sense, again, it's really important for you to understand just what is it going to look like to drive this vehicle or that vehicle in your real life. So once you have a good sense of an electric vehicle range that works for you, for your road trips and your weekly commutes, we like to say that it's really important to make a charging plan, kind of understand what your options are. So if you live in an apartment or condo, we have some special instructions for you here about how to access workplace charging, how to write a letter to your landlord or condo association to figure out how to install home charging in those kinds of scenarios where installing chargers is a little trickier. We'll also on a vehicle basis allow you to see how many miles approximately can you charge on a simple wall plug versus installing an L2 charger with your washer dryer outlet. We recommend some home chargers so you can kind of get a sense of what's out there, how much does it cost. Again, just allowing you to make a charging plan really quickly based on the vehicle that you're most interested in. I did, as folks were sharing earlier today, I saw a lot of individual questions about federal tax credits and rebates and what applies to me in my scenario. This is one of the biggest reasons why we originally founded EV Life, was because we had these questions ourselves. And as we looked at all these different government programs for EVs, tax credits, rebates, we got confused about all the different qualifying criteria. So what we've done is build a proprietary database that basically allows you to put in your zip code, how you file your taxes, and basically spin up a really custom quote based on your income, the vehicle you're looking at, and be able to get a full list of all the different tax credits and rebates that you qualify for, again, based on your scenario, your life. And you can click in and see the details of all these different programs, but they add up to quite a lot. In my case, in San Francisco, about 11,000, similar in Portland, around 10,000. In a lot of cases, we're really showing people some of the more rare programs. Like, a lot of folks don't realize that you can get a 30% tax credit just on installing your electric vehicle charger. And that's a huge value add. Carpool lane access in certain states like California. And then we'll also help you understand like what the fuel and car repair savings could look like on an annual basis. Give you recommendations of discounted electric rates, toll passes, you name it, and get into some of the environmental benefits as well. So it's really all about helping you understand what all the incentives and savings are, and then being able to make a decision based on all these factors much more quickly. So once you've gone ahead and you've understood the incentive landscape, then definitely recommend taking a test drive. And of course, during COVID, good to call ahead. Most dealers do have good COVID protocols, but good to call ahead and just kind of make an appointment, understand what the needs are. Ride-in drives are also really great. There's something called Drive Electric Week, which you can check out, but also just local ride-in drives where you can check out multiple cars, different types of cars all in one place, talk to the owners, understand like what cars are out there. And you can even rent a lot of electric cars on Turo and try them out for a week and see what they actually feel like before you buy them. Step number 6 is really understanding leasing versus buying, especially if you're not buying a Tesla. A lot of folks in the past have tended to try leasing because the technology is accelerating so quickly. People are concerned about the depreciating value. And so this could be a good risk-free way to get into an electric car and just try it for a few years. The federal tax credit also, if you're not doing a Chevy or a GM or Tesla vehicle, the federal tax credit gets passed through into your lease. So that's why EV leases are typically pretty low. The one caveat here is that some state rebate programs do have limitations, typically like 30 months of driving. So if you get a 24-month lease, you might miss out on some of the state rebates as well. So just be mindful of that with the leasing. I'm pretty bullish on the buying side or financing side because I think EV technology has improved dramatically. And anything really over 200 miles of battery range is going to last you for a really long time and retain a lot of value. The depreciation just isn't what it used to be. And, now coming out of COVID, there's still a lot of great dealer financing to take advantage of. So I think those are things to weigh back and forth as you think about leasing versus buying. Just a quick note, I mentioned this earlier, we're working up on this incentive-based financing product. We received a grant from the California Energy Commission to build out a fintech platform to allow customers to qualify for and use their incentives up front. So if you are interested in learning more about that, feel free to sign up for our wait list on our website for the EV Life Climate Loan. And then we'll let you know as soon as it's ready to launch in your area. But the notion here is that if you qualify for $10,000 in incentives, that you can take those off at the point of financing, at the point of purchase, and save about $200 a month on your monthly payments. Finally, again, like in the age of COVID, really important to consider your safe pickup or delivery options. Most dealerships have adjusted and do have options if you feel unsafe for any reason or want to take extra precautions to have a car or a test drive delivered to your house. Just be sure to call ahead and ask the right questions. Tesla in particular is great about, contact-free delivery. And finally, as you think about starting your EV journey, everything that I've showed you today is essentially free on EV Life's website. So feel free to go to evlife.co, just even as a public service to be able to use our tools to consider as a part of your research process as you start your journey to go from gas to electric. And you can also reach out to me directly. My email's on the slide. Thanks so much, guys, for having me, and happy Earth Day, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And I can vouch for how great that website is. It's such a great resource. The Car Finder alone is just amazing. Peter, do you have 5 minutes to stand, or do you have to hop right now?
Stay on. Yeah.
I know we've come up on our time, and folks have been patient on this marathon session of Earth Day for EVs. We've got a couple questions we could try to rapid fire through and answer as well as we can. It looks like Stephen's still online as well. So, one of our first questions is, what about pollution from mining lithium? So they're saying some local tribes are against that. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on lithium mining.
Well, I would jump into that. Usually people are worried about cobalt because cobalt, there have been some issues with ethical practices of cobalt mining in the Congo. But I think it's fair to say, yes, there can be sourcing issues around any material, period. I mean, we can make a long list of materials that have sourcing issues, from palm oil to wood products to metal products to coal, etc. So I don't want to sweep it under the rug, but I also feel like it's a little bit of a red herring because there's sourcing issues around every material that we use, period, including the food that you buy. So I think to single out EVs for that is kind of crazy. I mean, there's probably more issues around cocoa beans and chocolate beans than there are around these products. But having said that, it's important that we, have high expectations from these suppliers to have ethical practices for sourcing, and also to make sure that we're not abusing the earth in a different form, because now we're using EVs instead of these things that we've done. But I think the other way I think about it is, have people ever seen what a gas fracking site looks like? It's unbelievable. It just destroys huge tracts of land. Same with gasoline extraction, petroleum extraction, etc. Extractive industries are brutal. So I guess I would say we should be very insistent to these manufacturers. They hold themselves to high standards. But I don't see this as an issue that's any different than any industry in terms of sourcing of materials, personally. I don't know, do you guys want to jump in on that?
I think you answered that great, Brian. Interesting here. The next question is saying, I only drive 5 miles a week, and they're struggling with the question of getting rid of their gas car ASAP. I don't know. We touched on that in detail. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Do it. If you can afford it, do it. We need people like you to do it.
Furthers the technology. Increases, if you're charging at charging stations, you're going to, increase demand for those and increase the amount of charging stations out there. It's just good.
I had someone say to me that the other day that the argument that really resonated with her, and I was happy to hear this, was that the thing that made the difference was when she thought about it, like, wow, yeah, I can either spend my money on buying fossil fuels and all this crap that's causing the problem, or I can spend my money on the solution. That was a big one. I don't know. Hope that works for you guys out there.
How much does electric vehicle charging add to the electric bill? Peter, I don't know if you have a general rule of thumb.
I think it varies by utility, and it varies about what time you're charging, your time of use. Most electric utilities have a time of use rate for EVs that you can sign up for, even in states where EVs are rare. And so you can save money by making sure that you sign up for those discounted rates. But yeah, anywhere between $30 to $75 a month, depending on, again, how much you drive. But typically you're going to save, if you're charging at home, you're going to save, at least half of your fuel costs if you're driving with gas today.
Yeah. Great. So if EV batteries have 2/3 of their capacity remaining, how many years, and they're repurposed for other uses, how many years can those batteries remain useful before their capacity drops too low?
It's a good question. I think one of the reasons why, this is a really exciting development is because if you think about it, the reason why it's a problem with your car, if it only gets 2/3 of its capacity, is because you only have so much space in your car. You can't keep adding batteries in there. Whereas when we're talking about energy storage, particularly utility scale, if the capacity of that battery starts to diminish, they can use it till it's got zero capacity. They can still use it because it's still adding some value to them. It's not like occupying space that they have to put something else in, if you get what I mean. So I think it can have a really long life for that reason, because it's not the car, it's like the capacity to the volume, capacity to weight, that ratio has to be really good. Otherwise it doesn't work. With a energy storage, you can just keep adding batteries if it's a place like a utility scale. So I think the lifespan of these in that second life could be really long.
Great. Will any of the EVs you presented provide support for either vehicle to grid or vehicle to home? I can take a first stab on this one. A Nissan Leaf is it's built to be able to do vehicle to home. We're still a couple years out from being able to access these enormous batteries in our cars and be able to power our houses during an outage. But that's the goal. That's the dream. So we're hoping automakers move in that direction. There are chargers are coming onto the market. The Wallbox Quasar is one where you can use it both to charge your car, but also to charge your home in an emergency. So that stuff is, it's still cutting edge. There's nothing really commercially available yet, but we're hoping to get there soon, because who wouldn't want to access these enormous batteries?
Hey, Joe, the other thing, there's a kind of a question related to that just popped up here, but we haven't talked a lot about regarding batteries, is that there's probably more money going into R&D of energy storage than almost any other technology on the planet at the moment. So I think it's fair to say that in our lifetimes for sure, but I think even more like 5 years from now, it's very possible that the capacity of batteries could double. So for the same cost and volume, because there's a lot of technologies out there. I see articles almost every day about this, about advances technology that are going to make batteries even better than they are. So I think that it's exciting to see that. And most likely these new technologies, they aren't going to make obsolete what we have. They're just going to be additive to what we have and make them work even better. So I'm super excited about that.
Great. Next one, I'm going to shoot to you, Peter. How do I get a charger installed in my condominium complex? Your EV life.
Yeah. So great question. So it depends on what state you're in, but in a state like California, that's very friendly policy-wise to EVs, the governor passed a law a few years ago that basically allows any apartment dweller or condo owner to basically write a letter to their landlord or HOA, and unless there's any like unreasonable circumstances, that person cannot be denied the right to install their own charger at their own cost. So other states I know are developing some policies like this as well, but we have some templates. If you go to the charging section on EV Life for any vehicle, we have some templates that you can use to like fill in the blanks and write your HOA or your landlord and actually apply for that.
Great.
Workplace charging is another option that's becoming increasingly popular too. And charging at work actually helps balance the grid if you have a lot of solar and other renewables on the grid as well. So you can power up as we all go back to work, potentially go back into the office sometime this year. Workplace charging or charging, while you're out and about can be a great way to stay on top of keeping that battery topped up.
Absolutely. Great point. I'll take the next question. Can you charge too long? No, you can't charge too long. Your car will stop charging when it's full. The one thing I'll say is that you usually don't want to charge to 100% of your battery. That shortens the life of your battery. You want to keep it between 80 and 20% is a good rule of thumb. So most of your daily driving, you charge up to 80%. You drive your car, and then you charge back up to 80%. But on your trips, you go up to that 100%, and most cars allow you to do that. You set it automatically. Great. We're trying to get through all the questions. What insurance? What about insurance? Oh, did you have something to say, Brian?
No. I was just go for it.
Oh yeah. What about insurance when you have two 16-year-olds? Peter, any comment on insurance with EVs?
Insurance used to be more expensive. I think now it's about the same, is my understanding, just anecdotally from like the people that I know that have insured across the board. It's about the same now. I don't know if you have any intel on that from your experience, Joe.
I don't, unfortunately, but yeah, I haven't noticed any difference in that. There's somebody's asking about towing capacity. Some of the models for towing capacity, I don't know if Brian or Peter, you have any thoughts on towing capacity in EVs? I have some if you don't.
You should, I think you know more about that one. Go for it. Jump on it.
Yeah, so a lot of EVs are, we're still, the pickup trucks are coming out this year. Towing capacity is going to be getting better. The new Rivian and Tesla that we talked about. Tesla's going to be rated up to 14,000 pounds. The Rivian is going to be up to 11,000 pounds of towing capacity. The Teslas are your best right now for EVs. A lot of them are not rated for towing. The Model Y has a 3,500 pound towing capacity. So we're towing capacity, we're still working on that in the EV world, and more vehicles that can tow are coming soon.
Yeah, the big trucks, the Rivians and the Cybertruck, those are going to be the ones that are going to be interesting for towing. But
yeah,
I don't know, Joe, should we wrap it up here? I know we're quite a bit over time here. Should we?
Sounds good.
I know we could keep talking about this forever, but I want to make sure we respect people's day.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you to Peter. Thanks to our other panelists. Thanks to everyone for joining us and lasting out this marathon session of EVs on Earth Day. We've appreciated being here with you all. Thanks so much. We'll be sending out the YouTube video to all the registrants tomorrow. So if you missed any part, we'll be sending it to you. Thanks a ton, and good luck.
Yeah, happy Earth Day, everyone, and good luck with all your electrification projects. And let us know if you have questions about anything regarding electrification. Send us an email. We'll try to help you out. And thanks again, Peter. That was really fantastic to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Happy Earth Day all. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.